We're about to say goodbye to a piece of technology that, for so many of us, was basically the heart of our computers for decades. It's this familiar old friend, and it's just quietly vanishing right before our eyes.
Oh man, does this bring back memories? I mean, for anyone who's ever tinkered with a PC, this was it. This was the digital garage, the command center. This was the place you went to fix, to tweak, and to personalize absolutely everything.
That's right. For almost 4 decades, the control panel was the undisputed king of the hill for managing your Windows machine. But now, with every new update, Microsoft is slowly and very deliberately erasing it from existence. So let's dive in. We're going to trace its whole journey, right from its birth back in the 80s to its absolute peak as a power user's paradise, and we're going to uncover the real reasons behind its slow and steady march into the sunset.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Let's talk about the control panel's golden age and see how it grew from this simple little utility into an absolutely essential part of Windows.
The evolution here is pretty fascinating. It all kicked off way back in 1985 in Windows 1.0 as just a handful of basic settings. The really big leap, though, came with Windows 95. That's when it became a true special folder, a central hub for everything. Then Windows XP made it so much more approachable with that famous category view. But 2012, well, that was the year that really sealed its fate, because that's when its modern replacement first showed up on the scene.
So how did this whole thing actually work behind the scenes? You might think the control panel is one giant, complex program, but the reality is actually much simpler and, frankly, a lot more clever.
So the key to understanding the control panel is this one word, applet. An applet is just a tiny, single-purpose program. The control panel itself isn't one big application. It's more like a folder or a shell that just holds shortcuts to all these little tools. So when you open the control panel, Windows does a lightning-fast scan of your computer for any file ending in .cpl. It collects all the ones it finds, and then it just displays them for you in that familiar grid. It's a beautifully simple and modular system. Kind of brilliant, really.
So, what were these applets anyway? Well, they were the digital screwdrivers, wrenches, and paintbrushes we all used to customize our PCs. Let's take a look at some of the all-stars. Ever wonder what was really going on behind the curtain? Every single time you went to uninstall a program, you were actually running a little file called appwiz.cpl. When you changed your wallpaper, that was desk.cpl. And to check your computer specs, you were opening up system.cpl. These were the nerdy, back-end names for the everyday tools we all completely relied on.
But, as we saw on that timeline, everything changed in 2012. A completely new philosophy was taking over at Microsoft, and it was driven by a new kind of device. And the old control panel just didn't fit into that new world.
Windows 8 was Microsoft's huge bet on touchscreens and tablets, and the dense, mouse-driven interface of the control panel was just, well, it was terrible for fingers on a screen. So they built something totally new from the ground up, the PC Settings app. And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. You had two worlds colliding. The control panel was built for precision, for power users who wanted that super fine-grained control with a mouse. The Settings app, on the other hand, was built for simplicity and accessibility, with big touch targets and streamlined options for the average person. For a while, they both existed side by side, two completely different universes inside one operating system.
And that brings us to today. In Windows 10 and 11, the control panel isn't dead. Not exactly. It's more like a ghost, just haunting the background of the operating system while its functions are moved out one by one.
The official term here is deprecated, and in the software world, that just means a feature is obsolete and it's being phased out. See, Microsoft isn't killing the control panel with one big swing, they're slowly dismantling it, moving its organs over to the Settings app with each major update.
And you can see this happening right now on your own computer. If you find a shortcut to the old system properties, clicking it just redirects you straight to the modern settings page. And critical things like managing user accounts or Windows Update have been moved over completely. The control panel is becoming an empty shell.
So why does any of this matter? Because the story of the control panel isn't just about Windows. It's a perfect illustration of a massive trend that's happening across all of technology. We are constantly moving from these complex, powerful interfaces to simple, accessible ones designed for a much broader audience.
And that leaves us with a final, and I think, important question. This push for simplicity is powerful, and a lot of times it's necessary. But it's worth asking, as our tools become easier to use, are we losing that fine-grained control and that deeper understanding that came with the old, complex way of doing things? What's the right balance? It's definitely something to think about.